We have been discussing the premise that Guru Nanak's portrait of Sikhi was painted over an existing canvas, and that the old canvas had existed for thousands of years prior to Guru Nanak. What that means in the philosophical sense is that Guru Nanak redefined in a revolutionary way all the spiritual concepts of that pre-existing canvas. So while all the concepts of the old canvas are mentioned in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they have all been given new meanings. And if we intend to appreciate the Sikhi of Guru Nanak, we will need to understand the new meanings or redefined meanings or Gurbani meanings of the concepts as contained within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. In the previous 9 videos, we examined the concepts of death, afterlife, 8.4 million, reincarnation, heaven and hell, salvation or mukti, dargah, and Dharmaraj. In particular, we discussed how Gurbani had realigned and then redefined these concepts. In today's video Pyareo, we will look at the concept of Jum, the soldiers of death, and the concept of Chitrgupt, the accountant cum prosecutor in the court of judgment in the afterlife. So the first thing we need to do is to look at the pre-1469 beliefs pertaining to Jum and Chitrgupt. Now, the claim is that Jum are the soldiers of death that accompany Dharmaraj when he comes to take the soul of the departed. Jum are said to have frightening looks. They drag people by their hair. They have horns on their head. They have big and sharp teeth. They have black skin and do not wear clothes. They are armed with sharp weapons, and so on. Chitrgupt, on the other hand, is Dharmaraj's prosecutor of souls of the dead people. He is said to sit on the shoulders of every human being, and his task is to keep an eye on all that we do so that he could report that in the afterlife. Chitrgupt provides a full accounting of our deeds to Dharmaraj in his court or dargah on Judgment Day in the afterlife. Chitrgupt's accounting is the evidence and the basis of the judgment to send good souls to heaven, bad ones to one of the 21 hells, and to determine the path of 8.4 million reincarnation for the demised soul. It's worth noting that within the 4,000-year-old canvas, one day is set aside for the worship of Jum Doot and Chitrgupt. Females fast and apply marks on the forehead of their brothers on this day. The hope is that Jama will treat their dead souls with kindness. Pen and paper is distributed on this day to appease Chitrgupt. All these about entities in the afterlife that no one has come back to file a report on. All these about the powers, the duties, and the tasks of soldiers and accountants in the afterlife that no one really knows anything about. But this narrative, which is drawn from the old canvas, is presented as a religious fact and a religious truth by our clergy, our granthis, our pracharaks in our gurdwaras as Sikhi beliefs, as Gurmat beliefs, as beliefs supported by Gurbani. Our granthis, our ragis, our kirtaniyas, they sing shabads from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji that contain the words Jam and Chitrgupt during the death ceremonies of our loved ones, but present narratives derived from the 4,000-year-old canvas in the form of katha to our sangats. In short, Pyareo, it's kirtan of Gurbani. It's kirtan of Guru Nanak's canvas, but discourse of the old canvas. Now, the outcome is that the narrative that is held within the psyche of a vast majority of us Sikhs is not the narrative of Gurbani, but that of the old canvas. And the vast majority of Sikhs mistakenly think and believe and accept that the narrative of the old canvas is indeed the narrative of Gurbani. And nothing can be further than the truth. So what is the narrative of Jum within Gurbani? So we can develop the basic principles by examining some verses that discuss the concept. So the first thing Gurbani does is to remove the myths of Jum and the myth of Chitrgupt in the afterlife. And the second thing Gurbani does is to eliminate the fear that has been instilled by the purveyors or by the transmitters of this myth. Both concepts are then redefined to fit the canvas of Guru Nanak, a canvas that focuses on life in the here and the now. Let's begin by looking at this verse of Guru Amar Das Ji on page 1054 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. हर जियो की है सब सरकारा, ए जम क्या करे विचारा, हुक्मी बंदा हुक्म कमावे, हुक्मे करदा साहा है. The word sarkara means rule, means reign, authority or government. And sab sarkara means all of it. So the third Guru, Pacha, is saying, Har jiyo ki hai sab sarkara, meaning it is the omnipresent creator that is in total, complete and absolute authority on matters pertaining to creation. In the next verse, Guruji asks, "E jam kya kare vichara?" Meaning, what can this pitiful jam do? It's a rhetorical question, which is, in my life, there is in total command of the one creator. What can this Jum Doot do? What role do they have? And the answer is nothing. This Jam, meaning the Jam of the existing beliefs, the Jam of the afterlife, have zero role in my life. That's the meaning of "E Jam kya kare vichara." Then Pacha says, "Hukmi banda हुक्म कमावे, हुक्मे kadda saha hai." Meaning human beings are subject to the hukum of the creator, hukmi banda, and we live in accordance with his hukum, hukum kamawe, and that death and things concerning death are in accordance with his hukum, hukme kadda saha hai. Within such a spiritual narrative that is Gurbani, there is therefore no place for the concocted narratives of Jum Doot as soldiers of death and Chitrgupt as account keepers of the dead. Then we have this verse of Guru Nanak on page 1029 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Jam ke fahe tode gurmukh tat vichara hai. The meaning of tat vichara is authentic discourse. Guru Nanak is saying, this is the authentic and real narrative, which is that the creator connecting Guru, Satguru, dispels tode, the notion of Jam, dispels the entanglement with the notion of Jam, Jam ke fahe tode, from the life of a Sikh. The word Jam ke fahe means the entanglement with the notion of Jam. Why get entangled in something that is concocted, something that doesn't exist? So the meaning of the verse is, the creator connecting Guru liberates me from entanglement with the notion of Jam in the afterlife. And this is the authentic discourse. Here is a verse of Guru Arjan from page 620 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Satgur taap gavaya pahi, thand pai sansar. Apne ji jant ape rakhe, jamme kiyo hattar. The fifth Guru is saying, what the Creator connecting Guru, Sadguru, has done is as follows. He has eliminated the anxiety within my mind, taap gavaya pahi. And this has brought calm into my spiritual world, thand pai sansar. How so? That is answered in the next verse. By enlightening me that life is under the absolute command of the Creator Himself, apne ji jant ape rakhe, and that the notion of Jam as soldiers of death in the afterlife can be eliminated from my life. Jamme kiyo hatatar. The meaning of hatatar is to shoo away, to dispel, to remove, to eliminate. We have another verse of Guru Nanak on page 55 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as follows. Satgur agge ardas kar sajan de milaye, sajan milaya sukh paya, jam doot moe bik khaye. Guru Nanak Pasha is saying, what the Creator connecting Guru, Sadguru has done is to bring about realization of the Creator within. Sajjana de belai. The two outcomes of this realization are firstly spiritual bliss, sajjan melaya sukhapaya, and secondly the automatic elimination of the notion of jam doot muhe bekakhai. The literal meaning of muhe bekakhai is that Jum Doot committed suicide by taking poison. The literal meaning. Now, of course, is an idiomatic expression to say that the narrative of Jum Doot as soldiers of death in the afterlife dissipates by itself, is self-eliminated when enlightenment of the Creator connecting Shabd comes within me. That the notion of Jum Doot as soldiers of death in the afterlife ceases to exist, disappears and vanishes when enlightenment of the Shabd comes. So, Pyareo, what we see thus far from the verses as above are the following three things. One, the notion of Jum Doot as contained within the 4,000-year-old canvas is critiqued in the light of Gurbani enlightenment. As Guru Amar Das Ji says, "E Jam kya kare vichara?" Meaning, what can this pitiful Jam do now that I am enlightened? Or, as Guru Nanak says, "Jam ke fahe tode." The enlightenment of Gurbani liberates me from the entanglement with the notion of Jam in my afterlife. Or, as Guru Arjan Pacha says, Jum Doot muhe bik khaye, meaning the notion of Jum Doot as soldiers of death in the afterlife ceases to exist, disappears and vanishes when enlightenment of the Shabad is shone on this concocted notion. 2. Gurbani critiques Jum Doot in the afterlife in a way so as to dispel the narrative from our spirituality, to enlighten us that the narrative is so ridiculous that it needs to be removed completely from our psyche. 3. It is critiqued in a manner so as to eliminate the fear that is associated with accepting and believing this concocted and ludicrous narrative of Jum Doot. Sikhi is not a spirituality based on fear. It is based on enlightenment. 4. Jum Doot is nothing more than the expression of physical death that comes within the hukam of the Creator. The notion of Jama has no separate identity of its own whatsoever. Jam is not a specific or a specialized entity. So Jam in Gurbani is aligned as an expression of physical death. Guru Amar Das Ji makes this absolutely clear in his verse on page 588 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Slok Mahalla Tija. कल मैं जम जंदार है hukme kar kamaye. Meaning, within the span of our lifetime, jam is certain death, kal mein jam jandar hai, which comes in the hukum of the Creator, hukme kar kamaye, nothing more and nothing less. Jam is simply physical death within the confines of the Creator's hukum, within the parameters of the law of life. Gur rakhe se ubre manmukha de sajaye. Manmukhs consider death a punishment, a suffering, a thing of fear. But the message of the Guru elevates me above that. And the Guru provides the basic enlightenment for the elevation in the next verse. Jamakale was jag bandya tesda faru na koi. Meaning, death, jama, is for all living things. No one is above it. When something is for all, when something is certain, when no one can escape it, then fearing it is futile. That's the message. So in the basic sense then, what Gurbani has effectively done are two things. One, Gurbani has demolished the notion of Jum Doot as contained within the 4,000-year-old canvas, as an entity in the afterlife. Two, Gurbani then goes on to redefine the notion of Jam. We know, Pyareo, that Gurbani has redefined death as spiritual death. This is the death of concern to Gurbani. Spiritual death is the death that can be avoided and must be avoided. And a large portion of Gurbani is aimed at helping us avoid spiritual death, the death of our conscience. Since spiritual death is what Gurbani is deeply and purely concerned with, then the Jam of Gurbani are human vices as the bearers of spiritual death, human vices as the causes of spiritual death. This verse of Guru Arjan Ji on page 626 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji makes clear the redefining. Ram naam man laga, jam lajaye kar paga. The meaning of the first verse, Ram naam man laga, is my mind acquired virtues of the omnipresent Creator, Ram. My mind acquired divine virtues. The second verse explains the consequences of that, the outcome of that, Jama lajaye kar paga, the literal meaning of which is the Jam took off, the Jam ran off, meaning my vices took flight. The meaning of the entire couplet, Ram naam man laga, Jam lajaye kar paga, is my mind has acquired divine virtues, as a result of which my vices have left me. Here is a verse of Guru Ram Das Ji from page 574 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji that deploys the redefining. Har har naam jini aradhya, tenike dukh paap nivare, Satgur gyan khadg hath diya, Jam kankar maar bidare. The phrase Jam kankar maar bidare literally means to kill and eliminate the Jam. How was that accomplished? Satgur gyan khadg hath dina, meaning the Guru handed me a sword of enlightenment. But who were the Jam that I eliminated with the enlightenment of the Guru? The first verse gives the answers dukh paap, meaning pain and vices. The first verse also explains the how of it. Har har naam jini aradhya, meaning through the acquisition of divine virtues. So, Jam are redefined as our vices. And that is because vices are the agents and the causes of our spiritual death. Bhakta Rav Das Ji makes this point on page 659 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Rav Das jape Ram nama, mohe jamsyo nahi kama. Meaning, I have realized divine virtues. Vices don't work within me anymore. The word jama carries the redefined meaning as vices. This is because spiritual life is on account of divine virtues, and spiritual death is on account of our vices. Guru Arjan Patsha Ji has this verse on page 623 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Vadpagi Sadgur Paya Jena Jamaka Panth Mataya. I have been blessed with realization of the Creator, connecting Guru. Vadpagi Sadgur Paya. And Pasha says, my spiritual path has thus been cleared of my vices. Jamaka Panth Mataya. The word Panth means path. Here is a verse of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji on page 902 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji that uses the redefined meanings of jam as vices. Ram Naam Nar Nisbasar. मैं नेमक एक उर्धारे जम के त्रास मिटै नानक ते अपने जन्म सवारे. In the second verse, Guru Pasha is saying, my life has become adorned, has become beautiful, apne janam savare. How did that come about? The answer is in the first part of the same verse, jam ko tras mite, meaning the affliction of jam has ended. The affliction of my vices has ended. The affliction of my vices has been eliminated in the here and the now. How do we know that the affliction of jam is the affliction of vices? Because the previous verse talks about divine virtues. Ram, Nam, Nar, Nisbasar. Both verses are complementary in their message. The first verse talks about divine virtues being inculcated, and the second talks about the consequence of that, namely that human vices, jam, are being discarded. In summation, Pyareo, here is a Shabad of Guru Arjan Pacha from page 79 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji that sums up the Gurbani understanding of the subject matter under discussion. Man Pyarya Jio Mitra Har Ladde Khep Savli. Man Pyarya Jio Mitra Har Dar Nehchal Malli. Meaning, O beloved mind of mine, Man Pyarya Jio Mitra, adopt the spirituality pertaining to the omnipresent Creator that is of benefit. Har ladde khep savli, that is of benefit to my spirituality. Adopt a spirituality that provides a permanent realization of the Creator. Har dar nehchal malli. The next couplet is Har dar seve alk apeve nehchal asan paya तै जन्म ना मरण ना आवन जाना संसा दुख मिटाया. Meaning, adopt a spirituality har dar seve. What kind? That brings realization of the Creator within alk apeve, in the permanent sense, nehchal asan paya. In such a spirituality, the fears and the anxieties of death, of rebirth, and the cycle of reincarnation, tੈ janma na marana na avan jana, all of these fears and all of these anxieties are eliminated completely. Sansa dukha mitaya. The next couplet is Chitrgupt ka kagad farya Jum Doot kashu na chali Nanak Sikh de Man Pritam Har Ladde Khep Savalli. Meaning, I adopted a spirituality in which I shredded to pieces the belief in the accounting of Chitrgupt ka kagad farya, and a spirituality in which the Jum Doot have absolutely no effect on me. Jum Doot kachu na chali. And what is that spirituality? Guru Arjan provides the answer in the concluding verse. Nanak Sikh de man pritam har ladde khep savalli. That spirituality is the Sikhi of Nanak. That spirituality is the messages of Nanak. Nanak Sikh de, Nanak Sikhya de. The messages of the Sikhi of Nanak that inculcate love of the Creator within. Nanak Sikh de man pritam. This is the spirituality of benefit. Har ladde khep savalli. Just this one single Shabad of Guru Arjan Pyareo is sufficient to tell us that Jum Doot, Chitrgupt as pre-1469 beliefs have no place in Sikhi, no place in Gurmat, and no place in Gurbani. It's a pity that our clergy, Granthis, Pracharaks, Kirtaniyas, Ragis keep bending over backwards to prove the opposite. They keep narrating tales of these concocted entities in our Gurdwaras on a regular basis. They sing, recite Gurbani, but keep providing narratives from the rejected and discarded old texts relating to the old canvas. Some of our clergy appear engaged in a display of fake knowledge, or what we call folky Vedvata, in wanting to fix the round pegs of Gurbani into the square holes of beliefs of the pre-1469 canvas. They consider themselves schooled and well-read in narrating stories of the 4,000-year-old texts. Each time a Gurbani verse mentions Dargah, Dharmaraj, Jum Doot, Chitrgupt, 8.4 million, heaven, hell, etc., without stopping to think if Gurbani is actually mentioning them to critique them, to rubbish them, to align them, or to redefine them. While some of these clergy are doing so simply because they are schooled in deras, taksals or sampradas, all of which, each and every one of which, every single one is rooted in Brahmanical beliefs, others are unaware. And yet others have an agenda to fit Sikhi into the parameters of Brahmanism. In conclusion then, Pyareo, whenever and wherever any pre-1469 concept appears within Gurbani, it appears in two basic contexts. The first is in the context of the pre-1469 beliefs as Jum in the afterlife, as Chitrgupt in the afterlife. When used in such a context, the purpose of the Bhagat or Guru is to destruct the myth, critique it as unacceptable, point out its unbelievability and its non-acceptance, and to declare that I am above such a myth. Now, the second usage is in the redefined context. Jum Doot in the Gurbani redefined context are the vices that bring about spiritual death. Chitrgupt is that form or that dimension, Chitr, of ours that is invisible, Gopata, as opposed to the form of ours that is visible and known to the whole world, namely Chitr Pargat. The message of Gurbani is for our inner form, Chitr Gopata, to be one and same as the visible outer one, Chitr Pargat. The messages of Gurbani are for our Chitr Gopata to be one and same as our Chitr Pargat. Our task as Sikhs of Gurbani within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is to be able to know which of these two contexts are being applied by the composer of the Shabad wherever any pre-1469 concept is mentioned in Gurbani. The argument that Gurbani accepts these pre-1469 concepts simply because they are mentioned does not hold water. To hold such a position is to display our ignorance. In essence, then, Pyareo, what Gurbani has done is to liberate us from the entire pre-1469 canvas, to free us from the debilitating and crippling entanglement, fear and anxiety of the clergy concocted concepts of this old canvas. When you stop fearing the concocted notion of Jum Doot in the afterlife, then you start to eliminate the jum of spiritual death in the here and the now. When you discard the concocted notion of Chitrgupt in the afterlife, you acquire the Gurbani notion of aligning your inner and outer self. You start to align your Chitra, that is Gupt, with the Chitra that is Pargat for the whole world to see. When you stop chasing the spirituality of life after death, you start living the spirituality of the here and the now. And you allow the spirituality of Hukam to live and to work within you. When you discard the Gurbani discarded narratives of the 4,000-year-old canvas, you start living the truths of Gurbani. And when you stop chasing the wrong things, you give the right things a chance to catch you. The next video will examine the concept of our dead ancestors, or Pitar as they are called in Punjabi. That video will attempt to provide the new, redefined and Gurbani meanings as outlined within the 1429 pages of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And I hope you will continue to join me in this discovery of Gurbani concepts as contained within Guru Nanak's canvas.